What if one aircraft could reach places where even airports don't exist? From remote islands to disaster zones, Germany just unveiled a plane built for places others can't reach. And the craziest part? Almost nobody is talking about it. When most people think about airplanes, they picture long runways, control towers, and busy airports packed with passengers. That's just how flying works, right? Well, not everywhere. Imagine living in a small village surrounded by mountains. No highways, no rail lines, just rough terrain stretching for miles. Now imagine a medical emergency happens there. Suddenly, getting help isn't just difficult. It becomes a race against time. And that's a problem in more places than most people realize. Across the world, there are remote islands with barely enough flat ground for a runway. Tiny communities hidden deep in forests, regions cut off by rivers, areas where a normal airliner wouldn't even think about landing. For those places, aviation isn't about convenience, it's about survival. Then disaster strikes. A hurricane tears through an island, an earthquake destroys roads, floodwaters wipe out infrastructure overnight. Airports that once connected people to the outside world suddenly become useless. And for a second, it looks over. Because most aircraft need proper runways, smooth surfaces, reliable facilities. Without them, they're grounded. But here's where things get interesting. What if there was an aircraft built specifically for situations like these? A plane that doesn't panic when the runway turns into gravel. A plane that can keep operating when conditions get ugly. Because Germany's newest aircraft was designed for exactly those impossible locations. And once you see what this thing can do, you'll understand why some people believe it could become one of the most important utility aircraft of the next decade. But first, we need to meet the aircraft itself. In a year packed with flashy fighter jets, electric aircraft announcements, and futuristic aviation concepts, one aircraft quietly appeared and somehow slipped under the radar. That aircraft was the DO228 NXT. At first glance, it doesn't look revolutionary. It's not massive. It's not supersonic. It doesn't have some science fiction design that makes headlines around the world. In fact, if you saw it sitting on an airport ramp, you might walk right past it. And that's exactly why so many people underestimated it. The DO228 NXT was developed by General Atomics Aerotech Systems in Germany. Officially unveiled in 2026, it wasn't designed to be glamorous. It wasn't built to impress luxury travelers or compete with commercial airliners. It was built for one thing: getting the job done. And sometimes that's far more important. You see, while most aircraft manufacturers focus on speed, comfort, or passenger experience, the DO228 NXT focuses on reliability. It focuses on reaching difficult places. It focuses on missions where failure simply isn't an option. That changes everything. Because when you're delivering emergency supplies, evacuating injured people, conducting search and rescue operations, or supporting remote communities, nobody cares how fancy the cabin looks. They care whether the aircraft can get there. And this one can. The more you look at the DO228 NXT, the more you realize it's built for challenges that many modern aircraft were never really designed to handle. It can operate from short runways, reach remote locations, and take on missions that demand reliability above everything else. But what makes this story even more fascinating isn't its appearance. It's what this aircraft can actually do. And to understand why the DO228 NXT matters today, we have to go back more than 4 decades. Because this isn't a brand new idea that suddenly appeared in 2026. Its roots go much deeper than that. The story begins in the early 1980s, when a rugged twin-engine aircraft was created with a very different purpose in mind, one that would eventually shape the DO228 NXT we see today.
Gets us to where we are at today.
Long before the DO228 NXT existed, there was another aircraft quietly building a reputation around the world. The original Dornier 228. It first took to the skies in 1981, and while it never became a household name, people who operated it knew exactly what it was capable of. This thing earned trust the hard way, year after year, mission after mission, decade after decade. Whether it was flying passengers into remote regions, carrying cargo into difficult environments, or supporting government operations, the aircraft kept proving itself. And that's not something many aircraft can claim after more than 40 years. Think about that for a second. Aviation is full of designs that come and go. Technologies change. Manufacturers move on. Yet somehow, the Dornier 228 kept finding work. That says a lot. Its reputation wasn't built on speed records or flashy marketing campaigns. It was built on reliability. Operators knew it could handle tough conditions. They knew it could perform where other aircraft struggled. And then, something changed. In 2021, General Atomics acquired the Dornier 228 program. At that point, they had a choice: start from scratch, or take a proven aircraft and make it better. They chose the second option. But they didn't just refresh the paint and add a few upgrades. They went much further than that. Engineers began reworking the aircraft for modern operations, modern missions, and modern technology. The goal wasn't to replace the legacy, it was to build on it. And that process eventually led to the aircraft we're talking about today, the DO228 NXT, a new generation built on 4 decades of experience. But as impressive as that history is, it still isn't the aircraft's biggest strength. Not even close. Because the feature that truly defines this airplane is the one thing that allows it to go where most aircraft won't even try. And this is where the story gets really interesting. Now here's where a lot of people get the wrong idea. When they hear the DO228 NXT is based on an older aircraft, they assume it's basically the same machine with a few upgrades added on top. New paint, new seats, maybe a few modern screens, not even close. The team behind this aircraft went much further than that. Step inside the cockpit, and the difference becomes obvious almost immediately. Gone are many of the older systems pilots used for decades. In their place is a fully modernized flight deck, packed with digital avionics, advanced navigation tools, and much better situational awareness. And that matters more than you might think. Because many of the places this aircraft operates aren't forgiving. We're talking remote coastlines, isolated airstrips, rough weather, and environments where pilots need accurate information every second. The upgraded cockpit helps reduce workload and gives crews a much clearer picture of what's happening around them. But that's only part of the story. The improvements continue throughout the aircraft. The cabin received upgrades. LED lighting replaced older systems. Air conditioning was improved. Braking systems were enhanced. Even mission equipment integration became far more flexible, allowing operators to customize the aircraft for completely different roles. And then there's something most people never think about: the supply chain. Sounds boring, right? Except it isn't. One of the biggest challenges in aviation today is getting replacement parts quickly. So General Atomics increased in-house manufacturing and production capabilities, creating a more reliable support network around the aircraft. That means less downtime, faster maintenance, better availability. And when your aircraft might be carrying medical supplies or responding to emergencies, that's a huge deal. Suddenly, this isn't just an upgraded Dornier. It's a thoroughly modern platform built for the realities of today's missions. But modern technology is important operators care about something else just as much. Can all these upgrades be delivered without making the aircraft expensive to operate? Because if the numbers don't work, none of the technology matters. And that's where things get even more impressive. Aircraft operators usually ask a very simple question. Can it make money? Or in the case of governments and humanitarian organizations, can it complete missions efficiently without draining budgets? Because no matter how capable an aircraft looks on paper, operating costs can quickly become a problem. The DO228 NXT seems to understand that. Power comes from two Honeywell TPE 331 turboprop engines, producing around 776 shaft horsepower each. They're not flashy engines. They're not designed to break records. They're designed to work, day after day, mission after mission. And that's exactly what operators want. Fuel efficiency remains one of the aircraft's biggest advantages. Lower fuel consumption means lower operating costs. Maintenance requirements also stay relatively manageable compared with larger aircraft that require significantly more support and infrastructure. But then you look at the numbers. The aircraft can carry more than 2,000 kilograms of payload. It can travel roughly 2,500 kilometers before needing to refuel. It can stay in the air for 8 to 10 hours, sometimes even longer depending on the mission profile. That's serious capability for an aircraft of this size. And while it's not built for speed, a cruise speed of around 430 kilometers per hour allows it to cover large areas efficiently. Suddenly, the value becomes very clear. Regional operators see opportunity. Governments see flexibility. Humanitarian groups see access to places that often get overlooked. It's one aircraft solving multiple problems at the same time. And then, something happened almost immediately after the aircraft was unveiled. Something that revealed exactly who this airplane was really built for. Just days after the DO228 NXT was officially revealed, an announcement arrived that caught a lot of people's attention. The first aircraft had already been sold. Think about that for a moment. Before the aircraft had time to build years of service history in its new form, somebody was already convinced enough to place an order. And the identity of that customer made the story even more interesting. It wasn't a luxury charter company, it wasn't a regional airline, and it wasn't a military force. Instead, the first customer was an international humanitarian NGO that chose to remain anonymous. That decision alone tells you a lot. Because organizations like these don't buy aircraft for prestige. They buy them because lives may depend on them. According to reports, the aircraft is scheduled for delivery in early 2027 and will be configured specifically for rescue operations, emergency logistics, medical evacuation missions, and disaster response work. And suddenly everything starts making sense. The rough field capability, the short takeoff performance, the flexible cabin, the long endurance. All of it points toward one goal: getting help where help is needed most, when roads disappear, when infrastructure collapses, when communities become isolated. This aircraft keeps moving. And honestly, that first sale may have revealed the DO228 NXT's true identity better than any marketing campaign ever could. But this purchase tells us something even bigger. It raises a fascinating question. Could this aircraft quietly become one of the most important special mission platforms of the next decade? To answer that, we need to step back and look at the bigger aviation picture. Here's something interesting about aviation. The biggest aircraft usually get the biggest headlines. Massive airliners, advanced fighter jets, high-speed experimental projects. Those are the aircraft that dominate news coverage and social media discussions. Meanwhile, aircraft like the DO228 NXT often sit quietly in the background. And yet, they may end up making a bigger difference in people's lives. Because while larger aircraft depend on established infrastructure, the DO228 NXT was designed to operate where infrastructure barely exists. Yes, it faces competition from aircraft like the Cessna Sky Courier, Viking Twin Otter Series 400, LETL 410NG, and CASA C212 Aviocar. But the NXT brings together a very specific combination of strengths: exceptional STOL performance, rough field capability, long endurance, low operating costs, mission flexibility, and perhaps most importantly, reliability. That's a powerful mix. Imagine a future disaster response mission, a remote surveillance operation, a medical evacuation from an isolated region, a humanitarian relief effort reaching communities cut off from the outside world. Those aren't glamorous missions, but they're important, and aircraft like this make them possible. Which brings us back to the idea we started with. The most valuable aircraft isn't always the fastest. It isn't always the biggest. Sometimes it's simply the one that can go where nobody else can. And if the DO228 NXT delivers on its promise, it may quietly become one of the most useful aircraft of the coming decade. The question is, would you trust this aircraft in some of the world's toughest environments? Back at the beginning, we talked about places where airports barely exist: remote islands, mountain villages, disaster zones cut off from the world. That's where the DO228 NXT could make its biggest impact. While giant jets grab headlines, aircraft like this may end up saving far more lives behind the scenes. So, what do you think? Would you trust the DO228 NXT when conditions get extreme? Let me know below, and if you enjoyed this story, stick around because there are plenty more aviation innovations worth discovering.